Hey, before the video starts, I just want to say my bad if it sounds awful. I started recording yesterday when I heard about the story. I didn't want to go to bed before I got the video done, but I didn't expect it to take like 18 hours. In some parts, I just went back and re recorded, but out of order, like in between other segments, so it might sound inconsistent. So I apologize for that. Part of it was scripted, and the parts that were scripted were mostly bullet points. I probably would have been better off making a 10-minute slot video just talking in circles, but oh well, we ball. I'll just take it as a learning experience, and I'll know not what to do next time, and actually, hopefully make the video like a lot faster. I still tried on the actual content, just wanted to let everyone know why it would probably sound choppy, inconsistent, and weird. Anyway, on with the video. Hey, so I'm sure you're all well aware lying isn't a really good thing, and you probably shouldn't be doing it to people. You're probably told as a kid from a parent or teacher or whatever things such as crime doesn't pay, or if you lie enough, you only get caught up in it. Cheaters only cheat themselves and don't learn any valuable skills you get from hard work, or people that bully other people will be scrubbing the floors at McDonald's for the rest of their lives. Well, welcome to Planet Earth, bud, where people can lie, cheat, or steal as long as they're a big enough bully to make it not worth the time going after them, whether it's through threats and violence or legal threats and the fear of being financially ruined. Billy Mitchell just won a lawsuit in the Australian District Court against the Australian YouTuber Karl Jobst to the tune of $250,000, which is 395,000 Australian. Billy Mitchell is somebody that's been confirmed to be cheating in multiple records. I mean, he has a bunch, but a lot of them have been 100% confirmed to be cheating and falsified. So, I mean, can you really trust him on the rest? Some of them have been reinstated from his like legal muscle, but for the most part, if he wins a lawsuit, it's because of defamation, and that seems to be the way that he's just making his living at this point. Because I mean, he doesn't play video games, and he's like a disgraced celebrity, and he's basically just a lolcow that has enough people talking shit about him. He found an infinite money glitch. The thing is, the average judge is about 68 years old, so most likely they don't use social media all that often and aren't, very used to it, let alone having a deep understanding of how social media works. And I guess since like lying was invented, defamation has been a thing, so naturally the majority of the laws were invented way before the internet was even a thing. Defamation cases were like if a person or a company was using their influence and resources to actively set out on a campaign to ruin you, and like you could clearly go up to a court with concrete evidence to like show how it affected your family or your business, and then they could reward you for the damages or the loss in business that this could have caused. Billy's most noticeable for his Pac-Man and especially his Donkey Kong scores on Twin Galaxies. Like there's a documentary on him called The King of Kong. And funnily enough, on the Wikipedia page for it, it says Billy would be exposed as a cheater a decade later. Twin Galaxies wasn't always a global online hub for world records. Twin Galaxies was the name of a humble arcade started by a man named Walter Day in 1981, and it was in a city that only had a population of 20. A city, God. And it was in a town that had a population of only 25,000 people. Arcade machines keep high scores, but Twin Galaxies would publicize the whole list of high scores in all their machines on a list called the Twin Galaxies National Scoreboard. This was kind of novel at the time, so to get attention, because now you're not just competing with anybody that's been at that arcade and that's played that machine. You're kind of competing with like the whole nation, so it's like nationwide who's the best player because of the larger sample size naturally. And at his core, Billy, he seemed to be pretty competitive. He could play arcade games, but he was born in 1965. He didn't start playing video games and would play traditional games like skee ball until he was 16, according to his Wikipedia article. Games were rare and in a primitive stage in arcades until about 1980, when they like got it down to a science, I guess, because they released Pac-Man in like the beginning of the century, 1980, which was like a breakout success, like one of the biggest games ever for like a very long time. Billy was quoted saying, "Everyone was standing around the Donkey Kong machine, and I wanted that attention," which just goes to show, like, even back then when you had to walk to an arcade and just keep quarters on you and put money into the game just to play it, video game fame and attention was still more addictive than like nicotine and fentanyl combined. I guess it makes sense though, because everybody else that wanted to play Donkey Kong at the time had to go there, and they were all like, invested with their time because they, either had to walk or drive there, so they had no choice but to watch him play. Billy's also known for playing Donkey Kong until he got the kill screen, which takes around 2.5 hours to do. So imagine being the guy that is just sitting in an arcade, and this guy is coming in to see like how far the game can go, and he's just sitting there for like 2 hours. If because even get close to level 22, it's gonna take an insane amount of time with the way the game is paced. One of Billy's classmates would notice his grind on the arcade machines, and they would constantly one up each other in Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, learning to always play to the best of their abilities and push the limits of the game. Billy naturally reached out to Twin Galaxies because that was just the place for records at the time, because it was a pretty novel concept. He asked Walter what the highest score was in Donkey Kong, and he told him a man named Steve Sanders submitted a score of 1.4 million points. He tried getting a score even close to that, but he discovered at level 22, it just kills you, and the game just ends right there. In 1983, Life magazine would fly out a bunch of notable arcade players and record holders to Ottawa for a photo shoot at the Twin Galaxies arcade, which Billy was of course invited to, but so was Steve. He conveniently used the opportunity to call out Steve and prove that Steve's score would be impossible because the game just ends at level 22, and it obviously isn't possible to get that 1.4 million points in that same time frame. Demonstrated it in front of a bunch of witnesses and other record holders, and also just imagine being Steve and waiting almost 3 hours for someone to beat your record that you know in your heart and in the back of your head that you completely lied and just made up and just probably called Twin Galaxies and was like, yeah, 1.4 million. That was, yeah, that seems about right. He would get a high score of 874,300, and this event would establish Billy's reputation and also bring more attention to Twin Galaxies, and he would grow really close to the arcade in Walter Day. This arcade in the middle of Iowa had such a reputation that the mayor of the town at one point said it's the video game capital of the world. Billy continually breaking records, along with the 2007 documentary about him, would solidify his legacy in gaming, and the phenomenon around Twin Galaxies records would evolve into the world record and speedrunning communities that we know today. But as the decades go on, Walter would eventually quit as the CEO of Twin Galaxies, and a few years after that, some of Billy's records would be under scrutiny and subsequently removed, and in the meantime, Billy would earn a reputation for having an ego and being sue happy. The new management would create a dispute system for world records, and subsequently a moderator from the Donkey Kong forums would do video forensics and multiple tests to prove that there was no possible way on official like arcade hardware Billy Mitchell could have actually gotten that high score. And also he proved that not only could he have not gotten that high score on official hardware, but he proved that his gameplay shows like, obvious signs looking back that it wasn't on official hardware. It was on some form of like emulator that was on a computer inside the arcade machine. His records would get removed from the leaderboards and also the Guinness World Records, and he would sue not only Twin Galaxies but the Donkey Kong forums and a YouTuber named Apollo Legend. Apollo Legend was a speedrunning YouTuber and talked about world records and most notably cheating people, and did in-depth videos like exposing their gameplay and dissecting it frame by frame. I would be kind of discouraged from YouTube also if some gaming legend that's been around for decades has this huge scandal about them, and then suddenly they come out of the woodwork to talk about you, talking about their scandal that was already like making headlines, and they specifically target you and single you out. Apollo had 300,000 on his YouTube before his passing. That isn't a small amount, but it's not like he had enough to have a legal team on retainer, like, an actual YouTuber business like Mr. Beast or some shit. He was just a guy in his video making videos that were relevant on speedrunning and world records and gaming, and people falsifying those records. And this was like one of the biggest topics around the time involving world records. But I don't think getting sued was what made him give up. In his last video, like, it seemed like he had a lot going on, and that might have just been like 1% of the stress that he was dealing with in his life. And almost everybody sided with him at the time because they knew he didn't do anything wrong. And honestly, this could have been like good publicity for him in the long run. Like, I don't think he had much to be worried about here, and he probably could have gotten like the whole YouTube community behind him to fundraise this and to help him out with his legal troubles. I don't think Billy Mitchell was the reason. Nobody could have saw that coming, but you don't have to cause the death of somebody to be a scumbag. I mean, surely nothing good could have happened when you're using these mafia-like tactics to try to squeeze every last cent of anybody that opposes you and try to silence them and force them to get their videos deleted instead of just, having good takes and not lying all the time and just being right and getting people to like you that way. Also, I don't know why people still support him when he never submitted evidence to prove that his runs that were removed from Twin Galaxies were in fact real. With the current evidence, as far as we know, they're completely fake and were done on MAME. Like, the computer literally couldn't do exactly what the machine does. It just fucking plays the game differently. Like, he has fanboys kissing his ass, either calling him the best gamer in the world, or he has people that are like, so what if he cheated? They shouldn't be like talking shit about him anyway. But what's crazy is he's like doing all these lawsuits knowing that these records are fake anyway. He knows in his head, unless he's just like super good at the game and just refuses to share his secret or submit any new evidence that would confirm otherwise. It is just crazy that he did all these lawsuits knowing it's all in bad faith, it seems. Allegedly, apparently. There's a 4-hour video talking about how, his footage just wouldn't be possible on native hardware, even though he explicitly claims that he's only played on unmodified original Donkey Kong machine hardware, and he has never played on MAME once in his life. There's a nearly 50-page document on the inner workings of the MAME engine and how it processes the games and why the outputs that you see look the way that they do in MAME and how it looks in the Donkey Kong game and why they look differently, because it's just different hardware. Like, this is concrete mathematical proof that's consistent and it can be replicated. So I don't know why Billy doesn't drop the evidence when he can literally get his leaderboard scores back so easily. Guinness gave him his scores back when he threatened to sue them, probably because they just figured it's easier to just give the guy some fucking numbers back in a page when he's known to be the guy that has nothing better to do and is known for suing people all the time, and that's how he makes his living. Also, I don't know what alternate universe he lost out on 13 million in 2019, but yeah, the 2019 lawsuits he filed added up to 13 million, which is insane for, people talking bad about you being famous for video game high scores years ago. And they're fake high scores that are, proven to be fake, or at least proven not to be done the way that you've said they're done, the entire time for these years and years. He already basically got away with the whole scandal, had a whole career out of it, and had his fun for all these years. I seriously don't see why he's still salty about it. Instead of just moving on with his life and doing some other successful shit. It's honestly impressive. With a little dedication, the human spirit is completely invulnerable to embarrassment or being ashamed of being a complete sellout. On to the 2019 ones. He would win the Apollo one, obviously, and he would quietly quit pursuing the Donkey Kong Forum lawsuit. And the Twin Galaxies one is the only one left from 2019, and then after that is the Karl Jobst one a couple years later. But speaking of the 2019 lawsuits, he won the one against Apollo. He would later quietly quit pursuing the Donkey Kong Forum lawsuit, and part of the settlement was that he can't file another suit on the two people he was suing, so that one doesn't really matter. So now for the Twin Galaxies lawsuit, and also the Karl Jobst lawsuit, which came after that. Along with his California lawsuit against Twin Galaxies in 2019, in 2020 he also filed another lawsuit against Twin Galaxies, this time in Florida, and for $10 million. But it was dismissed in 2021 because, he would go months without responding to the courthouse. And he also represented himself, which probably was part of the reason this all fell apart. And he was most likely already busy suing them in California. The judge sent him a 60-day notice to respond to make sure he was still working on the case, and he just went months without responding. They did have a final Zoom meeting so the judge could inform him that the case has been thrown out and it's already on paperwork that it's dismissed and there's nothing he can do. Because, he did go 2 whole months without responding to anything. And they sent that notice for him to respond because he hasn't been doing anything for the trial for a long time before that. And despite Billy politely asking and complimenting the judge's tie, and for some reason claiming to know and have spoken to actress Melanie Griffith, the judge still dismissed it, unfortunately.
I spoke with Melanie Griffith yesterday. She was terrific. I discovered this hearing. I would have contacted sooner. I discovered it in my junk mail.
I'm not sure why he had 2 going on at the same time, but the Florida one may have just been a backup in case the first one failed, or maybe he was just confident enough to think that he could win both. Twin Galaxies filed for an anti-slap to end the first case, but the court still let Billy's case through. Twin Galaxies filed for a countersuit on Billy for fraud, and since both of these cases involved a lot of the same evidence and witnesses, the courts would allow them to present their sides at the same time for both cases, so it would move on a lot quicker and make it a lot simpler because both cases could affect each other as they go on and evidence is presented and all that. In the meantime, Billy would file his case on Karl Jobst in 2021, and the Twin Galaxies case would drag on for years. In the fraud case, he was accused of working with Walter Day in a conspiracy, knowing the scores weren't real and the scoreboard itself was supposedly rigged just to generate hype so they could sell the company once it gained a high speculative value due to its legacy and fame throughout the decades, and in the meantime embezzle money from Twin Galaxies to pay off personal debts. Billy's claims for financial and reputational damages were things such as the statements from Twin Galaxies gave him a hernia, and allegedly he said his doctor of 30 years refused to see him one day because he found out about the allegations about him cheating in a video game. Honestly, if that is real, that's just more funny than anything. The fact that his doctor of 30 years, instead of being a professional and calling him and saying that they just can't do business anymore, he's such a troll that he waits for him to book an appointment and shows up on the scheduled date just to tell him that he heard about his Donkey Kong records and that he won't be doing anything. It just sounds so absurd. It seems like an actual skit. Also, apparently he owns a hot sauce brand, which was brought up in the lawsuit. I thought it was weird that a man named Billy Mitchell owned a brand called Ricky's Famous Louisiana Hot Sauces, located in Hollywood, Florida. Apparently his family bought a place called Ricky's Restaurant and Sports Bar in 1974, and they just never changed the name. I'm surprised when he got ownership, he didn't rename it to Billy's Super Bangin' Amazing Video Game Record Breaking Hot Sauce or some shit. Yeah, but there's no shortage of questionable decisions in the lawsuit. There's a bunch of weird and petty and just straight up irrelevant things he brought up, hoping that the jury would feel bad for him or something. I don't know, we can only imagine what's going on in this man's head at any given time. But anyway, fast forward to 2025, and just a couple months ago, he settled, and the details were pretty much anonymous and confidential. But it seems pretty much like he settled because he knew it wasn't going to go anywhere, and he was probably going to lose anyway. And it doesn't seem like he's got $1 out of Twin Galaxies, and also they never had to reinstate them. Around January this year, when the case just ended, a lot of people were saying Twin Galaxies reinstated the records, but it seems like it was just some confusing legalese. They only reinstated them on an archival version of the website that can't be added to or anything. It seems like it's literally just there just to please Billy's ego. And then fast forward to now, just last night, Karl Jobst was sued for 250,000 US dollars from Billy Mitchell. And this was, I'm pretty sure, on April 1st in Australian time. So this is one of the craziest pranks to ever be pulled by an official nation's court, no less. Hopefully, this gets sent to the Court of Appeals or the Australian Supreme Court, and this can get reversed or something. I mean, Karl should have never said the things that he did, especially knowing Billy, who seems to be going for a world record in lawsuits. He just likes to cast a wide net and see how many land. Even if Elon Musk said this, though, I don't think 400,000 Australian is warranted. No way Billy Mitchell lost out on potentially 400,000 Australian or 250,000 US. 300,000 of what he was awarded was in non-economic damages. And I mean, for like a decade, he was already known as like the washed up, disgraced guy who everybody basically suspected of cheating. And then only in 2017, when those leaderboards were removed, did he like actually, get a buzz around this stuff and his name started to become relevant again. Like, aside from the 2017 lawsuit, he was most popular before that as a guy who sued Cartoon Network and lost over his ego. So I don't know how his reputation could be damaged possibly anymore after that. And he was awarded 50,000 in aggravated damages, which I'd assume to be like emotional distress caused from this. So I have no idea what the 300,000, like why that would be so high, because he doesn't really have a reputation left. He doesn't really post like high score after high score like he did decades ago. I don't know. Honestly though, shout out to Billy Mitchell. He found the infinite money glitch. He managed to be the most hated celebrity and still make a successful living by being so hated. I can't wait for this to become the new meta. As soon as anybody gets canceled, they just continue to be completely outrageous and do the most insane publicity stunts to get people talking about them and then farm defamation lawsuit dollars. We all gotta get in on this before the method dries up and all the free money is gone from all the courts, or they change the laws to patch this exploit. Because honestly, this shit does seem kind of overpowered. This guy honestly has Wings of Redemption's dream job. He sucks at video games and is publicly known for it. Well, at least since 2017 he is. And he argues with trolls and people that just generally dislike him all day. And he tries to prove himself to everybody, except he actually makes a shit ton of money sometimes. So, I mean, at least he has that going for him. But anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. 1 like equals -1 points to one of Billy's random records. And yeah, cheating in video games doesn't pay unless you have insanely good lawyers.